for the rim. Garnett on the slam low. Here's a Curry way downtown. Oh, what a shot from Curry!
What's up, NBA fans? Dom2K on the mic, and there's no reason to waste time with an intro because this is just part 2 to the video I did a couple of days ago. If you haven't seen that one, the link is going to be in the description, and I did the all-time starting lineups for 15 of the teams that are going to be in NBA 2K18, and today I'm doing the starting lineups for the 15 that I didn't do in that video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So we're going to start with the Lakers, and I believe this is actually the first picture that 2K showed us with the all-time lineups, so I kind of have the advantage of knowing who's going to be on the team already. For the starting lineup for the Lakers, I have Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, Elgin Baylor with an asterisk, Pau Gasol with a huge asterisk, and Shaquille O'Neal. So as you guys know from the last video, when I put an asterisk next to a player, that just means I think there's somebody that could possibly start in that place. For Elgin Baylor, technically James Worthy could get this starting small forward spot, but I know Elgin Baylor is also kind of held as like the Michael Jordan of the 60s, and if I'm not mistaken, his prime version, I'm pretty sure that rating is probably higher than James Worthy, so I wanted to put Worthy as an honorable mention here, but I think Baylor probably would get that starting spot. And there's a huge asterisk next to Pau Gasol's name because obviously you can still choose from Wilt Chamberlain and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and it kind of just seems like, especially with Kareem playing more years than Gasol there, that he would get the starting big man spot. But if you're looking from a functionality standpoint, wouldn't you rather start Pau Gasol at power forward if you're going to have Shaq starting at center? Because I'm pretty sure Shaq is going to be starting at center. You got to remember, with Wilt Chamberlain, his most dominant days were like with the Sixers and the Warriors, so technically his prime version is not with the Los Angeles Lakers. And I'm thinking at the power forward position, if I'm gonna have Shaq dominating the paint, you probably want Pau Gasol spreading the floor because he has a really good mid-range shot. He can shoot from the top of the key, and okay, I guess you can put Kareem there, you'll be fine too, but I don't know, I kind of just like Gasol's passing and shooting a little bit more at that spot. So if this was going by ratings, I believe Kareem would start there, but if you're going by how a team is going to play together and you're going by positions, then you're probably going to give that to Gasol because Pau Gasol is the true power forward anyway, so we'll see how that works out. Next, we're moving on to the Charlotte Hornets, and if there's any confusion, the Charlotte Hornets are the same team that became the Charlotte Bobcats, and they are back to the Charlotte Hornets, so this has nothing to do with New Orleans and not the New Orleans Hornets or the Pelicans. I'm just separating those two because I know some people will mix those up. That being said, with the Charlotte Hornets, I would have Baron Davis with an asterisk, I would have Del Curry with an asterisk, Gerald Wallace, Larry Johnson, and Alonzo Mourning. The reason I have Baron Davis with an asterisk is because I definitely think you could also give the starting spot to Kemba Walker as well. Baron Davis played for different teams. Kemba Walker is becoming a really good point guard, and he's yet to play for another franchise other than the Hornets. So to be honest, I'm not really sure who's going to start at that point guard spot, but at this point right now, it could be either one of them. At the shooting guard spot, I'm pretty sure Del Curry is going to get it because he gave the Hornets many solid years, but it could also go to Steven Jackson because he did some time with the Bobcats, and it was only a couple of years, but he was around 20 points a game. But really, I'm just doing an honorable mention here because with Curry's longevity, he really should get the starting spot. For the New York Knicks, I have Walt Frazier, Allen Houston, Carmelo Anthony with an asterisk, Willis Reed, and Patrick Ewing. The reason Carmelo has an asterisk is because he hasn't really accomplished anything with the Knicks, and not many players have, but he's had tons of losing seasons, and I think that when you're talking about a prime Carmelo Anthony, you're really thinking about his Denver Nugget days and his first few years with the Knicks. So if you wanted to give that small forward spot to someone else, you could go Bernard King because he pretty much had the best years of his career with the Knicks right before he blew out his knee, and he didn't play that long for the Knicks, but neither has Melo because most of his best years went to the Nuggets, so I would be okay if they didn't start Carmelo, and we have a prime Carmelo Anthony with the Nuggets anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much to me. The Phoenix Suns are pretty straightforward. For them, I would have Steve Nash, Dan Marley, Sean Marion, Charles Barkley, and Amari Stoudemire. That's a fun lineup to play with, and there's no asterisks there. I think this is pretty straightforward. I think this is what you're going to get. For the Timberwolves, I have Stephon Marbury, Andrew Wiggins, Latrell Sprewell, Kevin Garnett, Karl Towns with an asterisk. The reason he has an asterisk is because Kevin Garnett is starting for this team no matter what, and it's kind of hard to imagine Kevin Love not starting for the Wolves. That's where his best days were. He had monster numbers there. He had like a 30-30 game, which I believe is the only 30-30 game in a very long time in the NBA, and Karl Towns has only played 2 or 3 years, probably 2 years in the NBA. Even with just those 2 years, I feel like a lot of people would consider him, well, definitely better than Kevin Love right now, but they might even say he was better than Kevin Love was with the Wolves. So for that reason, they might want to give him the starting spot at the center position. And the other thing is that both Kevin Garnett and Kevin Love are power forwards, and Karl Towns is really the true center. So while it might be difficult to imagine Kevin Love not starting on an all-time Wolves team, it's also kind of hard to imagine that they're going to force a 2 power forward big man lineup when they could just put the true center in, and Karl Towns is probably better than Kevin Love ever was. This was a difficult lineup to put together because the Wolves have only been around for so long and there hasn't been that many players in their franchise's history. For instance, I believe Ricky Rubio is definitely going to be on the all-time team, but are you going to start him over Stephon Marbury? Yes, Rubio did more years, but Marbury was a really good point guard for the like 2 or 3 years that he played there, and him and Kevin Garnett was somewhat of a dynamic duo. So I picked Marbury, but I don't know, I'm up for a surprise here. This Rockets team is going to be really good. I got James Harden, Calvin Murphy with an asterisk, Tracy McGrady, Yao Ming with an asterisk, and Hakeem Olajuwon. First off, I want to say if you watched one of my old 2K videos when I did a simulation of adding legends back onto the team that they played for, I had Yao Ming and Hakeem Olajuwon with James Harden, and that team just dominated the league because Yao Ming and Hakeem, that would be a nightmare to deal with down low. But even with that, I gave Yao Ming an asterisk because technically you could put Moses Malone there as well. The one thing that Yao Ming has going for him is he played his entire career with the Rockets, and Moses Malone played for a couple of different teams. So we'll see how 2K has the starting lineup assembled, but I'm putting Yao Ming with Hakeem either way. And then there's Calvin Murphy. Now I doubt a lot of you know who he is, but he was a really good scorer. However, you could put Steve Francis at this shooting guard position as well. The reason I ran Harden at point guard is because I didn't really want to have Kenny Smith as a part of the Rockets all-time team when you had players like Harden who just played point guard, and he's proven he can do it. He almost won MVP there. So that's why Harden is at the point guard position. T-Mac obviously has to be there too, so between Murphy and Francis, I'm not sure who actually starts, but I expect them to both be there. For the Pacers, I have Vern Fleming, Reggie Miller, Paul George, Jermaine O'Neal, and Rick Smits. They did not have a lot of point guards in their history, and Vern Fleming seemed to be a standout, so that's why he got that spot. For the Orlando Magic, I love this team, and I actually used to run their big man duo in some of my old associations. I'm going to have Penny Hardaway, Tracy McGrady, Grant Hill with an asterisk, Dwight Howard, and Shaquille O'Neal. This would be one of the most dominant all-time teams in the game, but the one thing is I'm not sure what they're going to do with Grant Hill because all of Grant Hill's best days came with the Pistons. By the time he got to the Magic, he had tons and tons of ankle problems that totally killed the potential of that, so I'm not sure what his rating is going to be. I would definitely understand if he wasn't a starter, and if he's not a starter, in his place you could have Nick Anderson, and yeah, that's pretty much what I have because the Orlando Magic haven't been around that long. For the New Jersey Nets, Jason Kidd has to start at the point guard position. I would have Drazen Petrovic with an asterisk, Dr. J at small forward, Derek Coleman with an asterisk, and Brook Lopez. So for the asterisks, the thing is, Drazen Petrovic, obviously he died tragically when I believe he was only about 2 years into his New Jersey Nets career, but he was quickly becoming one of the best players in the league. He was a very good shooter, but I understand if they give this to Vince Carter instead because Vince Carter played longer with the Nets and it was at the tail end of his career, not the tail end of his career, it was at the tail end of his prime. That was pretty much where his prime ended, was with the New Jersey Nets. His best days were with the Raptors, so they've got some options there, but I think I would give it to Petrovic because when I think Vince Carter, I think Raptors, so I'm not sure if he's going to be starting for the Nets. And at the power forward position, they could definitely give this to Derek Coleman because he had a lot of good numbers for many years with the Nets, but so did Buck Williams, so I don't think anybody really cares who starts there, but I was just putting it out there for you. Here's a fun all-time team for you. For the Warriors, it could be Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant with a really big asterisk, Nate Thurman, and Wilt Chamberlain. Now, the reason Kevin Durant has a really big asterisk is because yes, while he is the best small forward to ever play for the Warriors, he's only played there for 1 year. We don't know how long he's actually going to play there, and technically Rick Barry has more Warriors history behind him, so out of respect, I kind of feel like he would get the starting small forward spot. But again, this is one of those things where if they're going by ratings, then I'm pretty sure Kevin Durant would get the starters there. And just for 2K purposes, I kind of feel like people would rather use Kevin Durant in a game than Rick Barry. However, Rick Barry's passing stat is going to be very high too, so that could be fun with Curry and Thompson, but we'll see what happens there. Either way, it kind of doesn't matter because when you think about who's going to be on this Warriors team, like on the bench you would have like a Chris Mullin and Mitch Richmond and Tim Hardaway, and then the We Believe Warriors, there's going to be so many points. You can easily put up 200 points with this team, and maybe you can do that for a lot of all-time teams, but they have Wilt Chamberlain on here, and this is going to be the prime Wilt Chamberlain, so this Warriors team is probably still going to be the most used roster. And while I'm thinking about it, definitely put an asterisk next to Klay Thompson's name as well, because I completely forgot that you could start either Chris Mullin or Mitch Richmond there. Klay Thompson has been a 3-and-D guy for the Warriors, and we really don't know if he's individually better than a guy like Chris Mullin and Mitch Richmond yet. And Mitch Richmond was a beast. He's a beast in real life, he's a beast in 2K, so I actually wouldn't be surprised if they changed this and had Mitch Richmond starting at the shooting guard position. Klay Thompson is one of the best shooters ever and now has 2 championships with the Warriors, and neither Mullin or Richmond won a championship, so so maybe because of that reason Klay Thompson gets the starts for the all-time team, but if you're going off of individual talent, I think both of them could actually go over him. I'm not really sure yet. For the Blazers, I have Damian Lillard with an asterisk, Clyde Drexler, Jerome Kersey with an asterisk, LaMarcus Aldridge with an asterisk, and Bill Walton. The reason I gave Lillard an asterisk is because Terry Porter gave the Blazers a lot of good years for a long time, and Lillard is still relatively young. However, I think we're all getting accustomed to the fact that Lillard is probably going to end up being the best point guard the Blazers have had to this point, so he probably does get the starting spot. For Jerome Kersey, he was a good player too, but Brandon Roy could definitely slip in there because Brandon Roy is not going to start at the shooting guard position over a Clyde Drexler. However, a lot of people think that Brandon Roy would start for the Blazers all-time team. We all understand that he was injured and he couldn't really control that, but for the time he played, he was really good, and a lot of players said that, you know, he was one of the best guys they had ever played against. So at the small forward position, even if 2K doesn't do it, I have a feeling that a lot of people would slide Brandon Roy in there. And LaMarcus Aldridge, I believe he's starting, but some people would argue Rasheed Wallace back with the old Blazers team that almost beat LA. A lot of people would argue that maybe he would start there, but I'm putting LaMarcus Aldridge. I'm just mentioning Rasheed Wallace. For the Spurs, there's not much to discuss here. You're gonna have Tony Parker, Kawhi Leonard, George Gervin, Tim Duncan, and David Robinson. Some people would argue that Ginobili deserves a starting spot, but I think Kawhi and George Gervin would probably edge him out talent-wise, so that's why they get that. And nobody from the Spurs franchise is gonna start over Parker, Duncan, or Robinson, so that's that. For the Pistons, I have Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Grant Hill, Dennis Rodman, and Bob Lanier, and this is another one where there's really no debates. Some people might say Andre Drummond over Lanier, but I urge you to go do your research on Lanier because there's no way Drummond starts over him just yet. And then Grant Hill from his Pistons days was really looking like he was going to be one of the best players of all time, so it makes sense that he would get the starting small forward spot. For the Wizards, I have John Wall, Gilbert Arenas, Bob Dandridge with an asterisk, Elvin Hayes, and Wes Unseld. Now, I doubt a lot of people even know much about Bob Dandridge, and much less his replacement that I would have in Greg Ballard. Greg Ballard was a good small forward for the Wizards for a long time, but Bob Dandridge was known as one of the better players in the league back then, and he did some years for the Washington franchise, so based off that, I think I would be starting him in a 2K all-time team. And for our last all-time team, we're going to be talking about the Raptors. This is another team like the Wolves that hasn't had a lot of time to build up franchise guys, and they just don't have that many good players in their history because they're only like the end of the 90s, I believe that's when they came into existence. So they would have Kyle Lowry, Vince Carter, DeRozan, Chris Bosh, and Jonas Valanciunas. With the lack of stars that the Raptors have had, and because they haven't been around that long, I don't even know, much like the Wolves, I don't know how they're going to fill out an entire roster. I know for the Raptors, T-Mac is probably going to be on the bench, and it's not going to be the best version of T-Mac because he hadn't really come into his own yet, so good luck with filling out the Raptors roster, and I will not be using him this year. Well, actually, that's a lie. It could be pretty fun dunking with DeRozan and Vince Carter, but nah, I don't think I'm going to be using them much. And I think that's enough shade thrown at the Raptors franchise for one video, and that is the end of this. So I now have done all 30 teams, and you can let me know if I forgot anybody, or who you would start, or what players you would interchange, or even who you think is going to be on the rest of the rosters. I would love to read that in the comment section. Make sure you hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on my future videos, and I'm Dom2K. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.